Welcome to aminacademy.com. In the history of Muslim world, let us discuss about a rightly guided Caliph Umar. Here are some key events in the life of Umar ibn al-Khattab, the second Caliph of the Rashidun Caliphate. Umar was born around 582 or 583 CE in Mecca, Hijaz, Arabia. He was a close companion of the Islamic Prophet Muhammad and an early convert to Islam. After Muhammad's death, Umar supported Abu Bakr, who became the first caliph. When Abu Bakr died in 634 CE, Umar becomes the second caliph. Military conquest. Umar Caliphate expanded to include Iraq, Iran, Azerbaijan, Armenia, Georgia, Syria, Jordan, Palestine, Lebanon, Egypt, and parts of the Afghanistan, Turkmenistan, and southwestern Pakistan. Codification of Islamic law. Umar codified Islamic law, Islamic calendar. Umar established the Islamic calendar, which is lunar like the Arabian calendar, but is based on the year of the Hijrah, when Muhammad emigrated to Medina in 622. In 644, Umar was assassinated by a Persian slave, Abu Lu'lu Firoz, while leading morning prayer in Masjid al-Nabawi. Umar died 2 days later and was buried with Muhammad's and near Abu Bakr. Before dying, Umar appointed a council of 6 men to elect his successor. And the committee chose Uthman as a third Caliph. Throughout his remarkable expansion, Umar closely controlled general policy and laid down the principles for administering the conquered lands. The structure of the later Islamic empire, including legal practice, is largely due to him. Umar established a dīwān, that is a register of various pensions that over time evolved into a powerful governmental body, inaugurated the Islamic Hijrī calendar, and created the office of the qadi, judge. He also established the garrison cities of Al-Fusṭāṭ in Egypt and Basra and Kūfah in Iraq. In 644, Umar was attacked by an enslaved Persian Christian named Abu Lulu and died from his wounds 3 days later. While he lay dying, Umar appointed a 6-man council that eventually selected Uthman ibn Affan as his successor. A strong ruler, stern towards offenders, and himself ascetic to the point of hardness, Umar was universally respected for his justice and authority. His role in decisively shaping the early Islamic community is widely acknowledged. Further, we'll discuss about Caliph Umar. Prior to his death, Abu Bakr had expressed the wish of appointing Umar as his successor. Thereupon, Umar had replied, "Save me from these fearful responsibilities. I do not want to office." To this, Abu Bakr rejoined, "You may not want office, but the office wants you." Ali, Aisha, and all others approved of this proposal, and the election went off by unanimous consent. The special rise of Islam dates from the region of Umar. He was as strong as the strength of character and morality as he was a righteous judge and a most efficient man of affairs. The beautiful land, which stretches northwards from Palestine, was known as Syria among the Romans and Berosham, or simply Sham, among the Arabs. It has been said before that Abu Bakr was the first to send their troops against Syria. The Romans, far from discouraged by his began to gather strength for themselves. The Roman Empire at this time was vast and most powerful, and the resources of the Muslims seemed to be utterly inadequate in comparison with their strength. The Roman Emperor Hercules himself confronted the invaders and devised various means for their destruction. For two methods of the armies waited expectantly, and in the end of Omar sent for Khalid, son of Walid, to leave Chaldea and lead the expedition against Syria. The Romans were completely defeated in the Battle of Yarmouk in the year 636 AD. The general Khalid put large numbers of Roman soldiers to death, and it is said that some among the troops were drowned in the bed of a river. Omar did not approve of this cruelty of Khalid, as he dismissed Khalid from the chief command and appointed Abu Ubaidah in his place. Fighting under the leadership of Abu Ubaidah, Khalid successively conquered and occupied Aleppo, Damascus, and other cities and regions. At last, the Muslims proceeded against Antioch, which was the capital of city of the Roman Empire in the east. Here too, the Romans were defeated, and after this, the Muslim army conquered Palestine under the leadership of Amr. The Roman governor of the place, attended by a large army, reached the outskirts of Jerusalem, but the Romans were defeated again and took refuge in Jerusalem. The chief priest of Jerusalem sued for peace, but he refused to surrender the city except the Caliph in person. Accordingly, Omar alone and without ostentation reached a place called Zabia, where he was met by representatives sent by the chief priest of Jerusalem. Umar gave them full liberty of religious worship and at the same time restored their churches on condition of paying a nominal rent. In AD 638, the Romans prepared again for battle. Hercules, once again sent a vast army against Syria, or once again they were defeated at the hands of the Muslims. After this, for several countries, Syria continued to be under the control of the Caliphs. The Muslims next turned their attention to the work of building up a navy. The Roman fleet was enabled to confront them in battle. One after another, the islands of the Grecian archipelago fell into the hands of the Muslims. The Romans had received a good deal of help from Egypt at the time when Syria was invaded. Accordingly, Omar sent an expedition against Egypt under the leadership of General Amr. The local inhabitants were dissatisfied with the conduct and character of the Romans, and they were eagerly waiting for a revolution. The Romans abandoned Egypt and took refuge in the fort of Alexandria. After a siege lasting for some time, Egypt, with the exception of Alexandria and extending as far as the border of Abyssinia, fell under the sway of the Muslims in fall under the sway of the Muslims in AD 640. The Muslims treated the agricultural and farming population of the province with great lenity. Instead of confiscating their lands, the Muslims made proper arrangements for water supply and drainage and re-excavated the canal which conducted the Mediterranean and Red Sea. In former times, there was a narrow channel leading on from the river Nile to the border of the Red Sea. Up Up till the third century, up till the third century AD, this canal was navigable, but gradually it had narrowed and become unfit for navigation. The channel was broadened by Amr and was used for the purpose of conveying goods and merchandise from Egypt to Hejaz. It is the same channel which is now known as the Suez Canal. The Coptic Christians of Egypt belonged to the Jacobite sect. The Muslims treated them with great civility and kindness. Later on, a battle was fought once again between the Romans and the Muslims, and Alexandria was occupied by Amr. The Muslims then removed their capital from Alexandria to a place called Fusṭāṭ of the right bank of the Nile. War went on simultaneously over the whole extent of territory from Egypt in the west to Syria in the north and Persia in the east. The Persians, defeated and helpless, had to fall back upon their own capital city. At about this time, Baghdad also fell under the sway of the Muslims. The Persian emperor Yazdegerd the third sent a powerful army in order to drive out the Muslims from all his dominions. In the year 637 AD, in the Great Battle of Qadisiyah, 30,000 Persian soldiers were killed together with their general. The rest saved themselves by flight. But in this general, but this great battle, 7,000 Arab soldiers also had to lose their lives. As a result of this battle, a large number of forts and cities belonging to the Persians fell into the hands of the Muslims. The Arabs crossed the Tigris and occupied the Persian capital Madain. Such enormous treasure fell into the hands of the Muslims as the result of this great victory, that 900 camels were required to convey even 1/5 of it to Medina. The rest of the treasure was divided equally among the 60,000 soldiers of the army. As the result of such distribution, 1,200 silver dirhams fell to the lot of each single soldier. Madain proving unfavorable to the health of the army, the Muslims built a new city at Kūfah where they began to dwell. After this, in the year 641 AD, the Persian emperor again confronted the Muslims with a vast army of Nahawan. Once again, the Persians were completely defeated. Their emperor fled, and more than 100,000 Persian soldiers lost their lives. In the result, the Persian Empire was totally annihilated, and at last the Muslims took possession even of the provinces of Hamadan and Azerbaijan. In the 10th year of Umar's reign, a certain Persian slave lodged complaint against his master before the Caliph. The Caliph rejected the suit on the plea that it was groundless. Dissatisfied with his judgment, Wretch entered the mosque at the time of prayer and gave a fatal wound to the Caliph. As a consequence of this wound, Omar died in AD 644. Egypt, Syria, Palestine, Iraq, Mesopotamia, and Persia fell under Muslims' control during his time. Omar extended the Muslims' empire from the Nile on one side to Persia on the other. Islam spread everywhere and in all directions under his rule. He founded no less than 14,000 mosques in his dominions. The dīwān or finance department, which he organized, is deserving of special mention. He made provisions for the payment of allowances to the Ansars and the Muhajirins according to their circumstances in life. while the booty captured from conquered countries was divided among the victorious generals. The Hijri era was first inaugurated by Omar. Even the poorest and meanest of his subjects had access to the Caliph. Mighty rulers and conqueror as he was, he never felt the least hesitation in going out alone at night in order to observe the condition of his subjects. The Caliph organized a well regulated military department and set up separate armies for the provinces of Kūfah, Basra, Jordan, and Palestine. In these provinces, all men of military age were liable to be called upon her service. Elsewhere, soldiers were recruited according to needs of the time and circumstances of the country. The armies of Abu Bakr consisted only of the mu'min or the faithful, while the far-sighted Omar recruited from all classes of men for his armies without distinction of friends or foe. By this time, the Umayyads were growing in power and influence in the city of Medina. Since the death of Prophet, they had looked with an evil eye upon the Hashemite family. In particular, their efforts were always directed towards the attainment of the caliphate. Hence, after the death of Umar, disputes went on for several days about the election of the new caliph. Umar, at the time of his death, he had appointed none as his successor, but in order that the election might be smoothly managed, he had chosen a council consisting of six of the closest companions of the Prophet and had further given indications that the Caliph should be selected, if possible, from between Usman and Ali. A proposal was made that the new Caliph should be required to follow the Quran, the traditional sayings of Prophet, and the rules laid down by the preceding Caliphs. Ali refused to accept the last conditions, but Usman complied, and accordingly, in the year 644 AD, he was appointed Caliph in the seventh year of his age. That is, Usman became a third Caliph. So far, we discussed about righteous Khalifa Omar. If you have done, please subscribe our YouTube channel.